outside of that gate?
I approached Mr. Goldman. When I was on the other side, I noticed that one of his eyes was open. So I approached him. I shined my light to see if there was any movement in his pupil. There was none. It remained fixed and dilated. And I touched his eyeball with my finger to get any involuntary reaction, such as twitching of the eyelid, movement of the head. And it just basically verified that he was dead.
The jury is now back in the courtroom, and Officer Risky is being cross-examined by Johnny Cochran. Let's listen into the proceedings.
G and H.
All right.
Of Exhibit 56. I want you to step down if you can, block others, and I want you to look at the glove under this foliage here, this plant. Can you see it from there?
Yes, sir.
The laser?
Yes, sir.
If you'll notice, the fingers of the glove are pointed toward a tennis shoe. Do you see that?
Yes, sir.
And do you notice that the V part of the glove is almost up against the walkway there? Do you see that?
Yes, sir.
I'm indicating that. I'm going to make sure everybody can see that. Do you see?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay. Now I want you to now shift your attention over to this next exhibit where there's a 102 marked herein. Can you see where the V part of the glove is now pointing in another direction?
Yes, sir.
And that the fingers of the glove are now pointed in a different direction also?
Yes,
the glove
sir.
has been moved? You see that?
Yes, sir.
Were you there when this happened?
No, I wasn't.
Now, one of the things that you tried to do at this scene was to preserve it so that evidence was not moved. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
Your Honor,
Cochran,
I'd
I'm
like
sorry.
to show it to the other.
I was about to suggest that.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Right.
I'd have some help. I have some. Well, I have some help from these two lawyers. Appreciate it.
I think we're just working with one of these right now.
Johnny
think we're
Cochran
working
has
with one of
just
these
shown
right now.
this witness 2 photographs of the glove
Well,
found
let's
at the Bundy
let the
location.
jury down at the short end down here take a look.
And he's now bringing the
You may.
exhibit down to the other end so that the jury down at the other end of the jury box and the alternates will be able to view these exhibits close up.
Officer Risky, first of all, with regard to the envelope, which we talked about first, with regard to the envelope, and this photograph here on, is that 56? People's 56 in identification. You see, Officer Risky, as I pointed out, you see the grouting there and the envelope?
Yes,
that
sir, I do.
location? The envelope is beyond the grouting?
Yes, sir.
See that? Now, Mr. Douglas, can you put that down just a second? I want to show him the other envelope, the other photograph.
Let's do it this way, Carl. Let's see. I'll do it this way. This way. Then we can... Excuse
Yeah.
me. I'm sorry. We have to... This way. This way. Okay.
Now, we now have exhibits 56 and 54. What we're trying to demonstrate. You see the grouting, Officer Risky, on this, where the grouting is there in the envelope? You see that?
Yes, sir.
And up here, you see where the grouting is in the envelope?
Yes, sir.
You can see it's been moved in those 2 pictures, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, from 56 to 54. All right, let's move now, gentlemen, to the 56 with regard to the glove, the location of the glove. For the record, Madam Reporter, we're referring now to People's 56 for identification. Now, Officer Risky, with regard to the glove here in what is now 56G. You see the V part of the glove there?
Yes, sir, I
Up
do.
against the walkway there?
Yes.
You see the fingers of the glove pointing toward the shoes there, tennis
Yes.
shoes? And if you look to the right at 56H, see the V part of the glove is pointing in a different direction, and the fingers are pointing in a different direction?
Yes.
And in this photograph, 56G, 56H. Is there also a cap somewhere under this foliage?
Yes, sir.
It's hidden by pretty much by the foliage there.
It'll be right here.
Now, so that we're clear, did I say that?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, John. You mentioned thank you very much, sir. I believe that you told us earlier that you were present when Detective Furman returned from Rockingham. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Although you couldn't tell us the exact time that he got back, it was your belief that he'd been away and had gone to Rockingham for about an hour, and that he returned somewhere perhaps after 6:30. Is that a fair
That's
statement?
correct.
And that the photograph of Furman with nothing on his shoes, but with his shoes in the area where Mr. Goldman's body was found, was taken after he returned back from Rockingham. Is that right?
Right.
And it's clear, is it not, and you recall, do you not, that the coroner, the L.A. County Coroner's Office, had not arrived at that scene by the time that you left at 7:15. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
So when you left that morning, both of the bodies were still in their same relative positions. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
If you know, sir, had the coroner's office been called at all by the time that you left?
I have no idea.
You have no knowledge of all of that? All right, but you know the bodies were still there.
Yes.
So that the pictures which I've just shown you, where the evidence apparently has been moved, while you were there at least, did you see the photographer taking any of these pictures?
No, I didn't. I saw him take a picture of Furman. That's it.
All right, now the picture of Furman was in the same general area, was it not?
That's correct.
And so at this point, the photographer was no longer in the back. He was now up in the front part of the location, right?
That's correct.
Did he continue to shoot pictures after that?
I saw him take a picture of Mark Furman. That's the only one I saw, besides the rear.
Did you continue to watch the photographer after that?
Yes.
And did you watch him until you left, or did you go and do something else?
I stayed in the front of the crime scene the whole time until I left.
All right, now when you were outside in the crime scene and outside in your car writing your report, you weren't watching the photographer at that point, were you?
I wrote my report in the rear.
In the rear of what?
Of the rear of in the alley.
In other words, the report that I read to you earlier,
That's correct.
you read it in the rear at 5:15?
I wrote that in the rear, yes.
All right. When you were back in the front, you weren't at all times watching the photographer, were you, as he took these pictures?
No.
In other words, he was doing his job, you were doing your job.
No, he wasn't taking photos. He didn't take these pictures when I was there.
Okay, he took these pictures later?
I would assume he didn't take them when I was there.
All right, well, you see the pictures now, right?
Yeah.
But you didn't see them taken when you were there.
No, I didn't.
Okay. Now, you described for us that at one point, sir, as part of your duties there, you searched in and around the alleyway from Dorothy, I think, to Bundy, to Gorham. Do you call that?
Yes.
And what were you searching for?
Anything, any other evidence we might find?
Were you searching for bloody clothes?
Bloody clothes, a bloody handprint on a trash can, maybe evidence in a trash can, additional blood drops,
Searching for knives?
anything.
Your search, were you searching by yourself or in company with some other officer?
I was alone.
And who had directed you to do this search?
Nobody.
And as you searched, how long did you search, sir?
Just 10 minutes, maybe.
And during the time that you searched, did you ever find any bloody clothes or a knife or anything of that nature at all?
No, I didn't.
Were any of the other officers who you previously told us who were at the scene that morning, were any of them searching, if you recall?
I know they were knocking on doors, talking to neighbors, but if they were searching, I have no knowledge.
You don't know whether they were searching or not?
No.
All right, but you saw a number of officers fanning out in the area. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Now, when the four detectives left Bundy and went to Rockingham, they all go together?
I didn't see them leave. I don't know how they went.
All right, you knew at some point they had left, but you don't know how they
That's
left,
correct.
right? You know where all four of them went over there?
Pardon me?
You know why all four of them went over there?
No, I don't.
It's true, is it not, that once Van Adder and Lang were assigned to this case, Furman and Phillips were off the case, right?
Meaning, off
As
the
the
case.
detectives on the case.
They could be the assisting detectives. They just weren't in charge.
Let me ask you this. Do you know that for a fact?
No.
All right. So, as an officer of some 4 years' experience, had you ever been at a scene where robbery homicide detectives came and took over?
That depends on what you mean. I've handled cases where the K car, which works for robbery homicide, comes out and takes a report.
Now, I'm talking about a situation where, because of the nature of the case, robbery homicide detectives are assigned to the case, and the detectives who are on the case are then taken off. We had that situation before?
No.
And when you talked to Detective Furman, when the two of you were talking, and you were advised that robbery homicide was taking over the case from Phillips and Furman, remember that conversation?
Yes.
Was Furman disappointed because he's being relieved by Van Adder and Lang?
He didn't tell me he was disappointed, no.
What did he tell you about that? Did he tell you they were just relieving him?
Yeah, they just said robbery homicide was on the way to take over.
All right. Now, if robbery homicide arrived then sometime after 4 o'clock to take over, do you know why it was then that all 4 of the detectives then went over to Rockingham?
No.
Okay. And if robbery homicide had taken over at 4, do you know why it was that Furman returned back to the address there at Bundy after 6:30 and was participating in taking pictures? Do you know why that
No, I
was?
don't.
When Furman came back to Bundy, was he accompanied by his partner, also Detective Phillips?
Yes.
Was he there also when he came back?
He was in the street.
All right, and did you give him the phone back at that point?
Yes, I did.
By the way, with regard to your testimony here, have you watched television at all in connection with this case before today?
Well, you can't really help it. It's always on.
It's always on, isn't it? Were you told that you were not supposed to watch television?
No.
The DH didn't tell you, the judge had ordered all witnesses not to watch television? They didn't tell you that?
Not that I recall, no.
So you've been watching this, and without them telling you that, and did you hear the testimony of Pablo Finvez with regard to the color of that Jeep?
No.
Did you see his testimony?
No, I didn't.
You still believe that Jeep is dark green?
I believe it was dark green.
You've never heard anybody when you're watching television say that, have you?
No.
But what part of this proceedings have you been watching on television?
Of this trial?
Yes, of this trial. Sir.
None of this trial. I saw the prelim.
And you've not been watching since that time?
No.
You just said it was always on television. What have you seen?
Just you turn on a channel and it's on. You change the channel.
Well, if you change the channel, you turn to another channel that has it on, don't you?
Yeah, but you just keep changing the channel.
Keep doing what?
You just keep changing the channel. There's more than one channel, sir.
No, I hope so. But when you turn from one channel to the other, what have you seen in connection with this case, this trial? Because you weren't aware of the court's order. That's the question.
I don't recall seeing anything on this case. On a trial. I saw the prelim. No.
None of the testimony?
No.
Now, when the 4 detectives went over to Rockingham, do you know whether or not the photographer went with them?
I don't know.
Did you see him during the time when you didn't see the 4 detectives?
I believe he was still at Bundy.
You think he's still at Bundy?
Yes, sir.
Would it refresh your recollection to look at the log at all?
Well, I didn't write the log again, so.
So would that refresh your recollection or not?
I didn't write the log. I don't know.
All right. Well, what did you see him doing if you believe he was there during the time they were away?
Standing by a car, talking to somebody else.
And it's your belief he did not go to Rockingham, right? Is that what you're telling us?
I believe he stayed. I'm not sure.
You're not sure?
Well, I believe he stayed at Bundy.
Now, this blood that you described toward the rear gate of that property, could you see that with the naked eye, or did you see that with the use of a flashlight?
Flashlight.
And did you and your partner both see it, or did you see it first?
I saw the blood on the interior. He saw the blood on the exterior.
And did you tell the detectives, Lang and Van Adder, about this?
I showed it to Furman and Phillips. I don't know if they told him or not.
All right, you showed it to Furman and Phillips.
That's correct.
You did not show it to Lang and Van Adder?
No.
And you felt that was important evidence, did you not?
Yes.
With regard to any or either of these fences, did you ever have occasion to close either the front gate that we've previously seen or this rear gate?
No, I didn't.
So you don't know the sound that those gates might make when they're closed?
No.
You didn't test those at all?
No.
Now, may I ask you this, with regard to how that front gate is opened, while you were there, did you or any of the officers conduct any kind of an experiment to see how that works?
No.
How you get in the front gate?
No.
You didn't do that?
Mm-mm.
While you were there, did the fingerprint dusters or the technicians who do that, did they come to the scene at all?
No.
And while you were there, you continued as best you could to try and preserve that crime scene without moving evidence, right?
That's correct.
Or stepping in blood. Is that right?
That's correct.
You did not return to that scene again in any official capacity after you left at 7:15 or 7:20 on the morning of June 13th, 1994. Is that correct?
Not while it was still a crime scene, no.
Were you aware that at some point that crime scene was hosed down? Do you know what time and what day that was done?
No.
You don't know?
No, I don't.
You don't know what date it was no longer designated a crime scene, do you?
No.
All right, Your Honor, perhaps this might be an appropriate place. I'm not finished.
If you want to approach, please.
Sure.
While the attorneys go to sidebar, we'll take... The sidebar is completed, but the jury has been asked to leave the room while the judge determines the admissibility of certain evidence that the defense wishes to show Officer Risky. Officer Risky has also been asked to leave the courtroom while the parties discuss this. And at this point, let's review some previous testimony from Officer Risky. As you know, he discovered the bodies of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman. In addition, he found several pieces of evidence around the body of Ron Goldman, specifically a glove.
All right, now after you made these observations, sir, and you're able to see, at that time, tell us what you saw.
I saw the envelope there, the heel print. If you look at the picture closely, there's a glove and what appears to be a knit cap under the plan on the right.
Okay. Let me get you a better picture of that.
That'd be the glove right there.
That we're pointing to right now?
Yes.
All right. And then was there, you said there was a hat somewhere?
No, very lower right corner, you can see part of a hat. What appears to be a knit cap.
Down here?
Right.
Right now, you just saw a still photo on your screen, and that is one of the pieces of evidence that Johnny Cochran seeks to have admitted into evidence. And the judge is viewing these right now outside the view of the jury and outside the view of Officer Risky. Let's see if we're getting any audio from the courtroom right now. You can see Johnny Cochran discussing with O.J. Simpson the items that they're viewing right now on the evidence screen. For much of the day, when certain of the photographs have been shown, O.J. Simpson has appeared either upset or has turned away. And at various times, he has conferred with either Robert Shapiro or Johnny Cochran.
Next frame after this.
We're hearing audio now from the courtroom. Let's listen into the proceedings.
All right, is it possible to take out the still and search writing on that?
That's what comes up when you have to do it manually, unfortunately. I can do it while you're looking at it.
Can you back up here and I want to...
When you print this, does it come up with the?
Show this test, so
I'm sorry.
part of the problem is that the defense is running off their laser disc. Their laser disc is not hooked up to this particular printing. They use a different system. So I cannot make a print copy of this particular photo. This one we just hooked up.
Can we use their disc?
Yeah.
We'll use their disc now?
The problem is that I think let's try. One way to find out is to try.
Could you back up one before you do that? I want to see the cap.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do the one on the other glove.
You can see O.J. Simpson turning away while some of these photos are being shown. He's been doing this throughout the day as the camera has panned over at various times while certain photos of the crime scene have been displayed in court. O.J. Simpson has at various times appeared upset and other times has turned away. We talked about the high-tech evidence display system. The evidence here in the form of videotapes or photographs is actually being converted to Laserdisc, and there was a person over at the left side of your screen operating certain machinery. He's actually operating a Laserdisc player, and they actually print out photos for the jury of certain still frames. Let's listen into the proceedings.
Clear. It's coming off. Okay. See if I can get a photo printed off this. No, I'll attempt to print, but I do believe that it will show the search code on it because it's a direct video capture.
All right, is this a laser disc, the defense laser disc, Mr. Harris?
Yes, sir.
All right. Mr. Fairlaw, what does it show?
This particular copy shows the search, but we think we might have found a way to print it without the search code across it. We shall see in a moment.
What we're dealing with right now is not a matter of evidence so much as a matter of technology. We're going to take a short break while the parties try to determine which pictures they're able to print and which they are not. We'll be back with more right after this. It's not in the courtroom, neither is Officer Robert Risky. Defense Attorney Johnny Cochran intends to present to Officer Risky 2 photographs of the envelope, which he says he spotted at the crime scene, depicting actually that the envelope was moved, this according to Johnny Cochran, and also intends to show him 2 photographs of the bloody glove found at the Bundy crime scene, also indicating that the evidence was moved. The officer had been shown various people's exhibits earlier today, and he agreed in his testimony that based on those photos, it did appear that each of those items had been moved for purposes of the picture at least. However, he did testify that while he was there, no evidence had been moved. So these apparently inconsistent statements Greta Van Susteren in our Washington studios, what do you make of these inconsistencies?
Well, Jim, it suggests that perhaps that scene was contaminated because the glove was moved. There are different photographs of it, and that is what the thrust of the defense is, that this scene was contaminated, and for that reason they can't prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt against O.J. Simpson.
Alvin Michelson, here in Los Angeles, criminal defense attorney. Is this a suggestion of more to come as far as the defense attack on this contamination issue?
Well, absolutely, because after all, if some of these things were moved, who's to say that the famous glove wasn't moved, that there was, you know, that Furman did what the defense says he did or is going to imply he did, that other things were not moved. He's already testified that the fingerprint people were not there at the time that these things were moved. That's certainly important because the scene clearly is not the same and was not the same when the fingerprint people came and when the pictures were taken. So this is quite a serious dent, I think, in the prosecution's case, which perhaps can be explained, but at the moment is certainly a dent.
Just to explain what you're seeing right now, Johnny Cochran is standing by a table there, and at that table is some high-tech evidence display equipment, included among that a Laserdisc player, and both parties have put onto Laserdisc much of the physical or photographic evidence that they intend to present during this trial, and Johnny Cochran is having certain still frames printed out, actually right there in the courtroom. Greta, speak to what we're looking at now, if you could. We saw a rare moment of joviality there. Marcia Clark was chuckling, laughing with Johnny Cochran and Chris Darden. They're very contentious when they're fighting, but they appear to be professional and can certainly joke in the courtroom under such serious circumstances.
Jim, trying a case is a roller coaster ride. One day you can't stand your opponent. You don't even want to see the opponent's face. On other days you're quite friendly and jovial, might even be able to have lunch with the person. It's just a roller coaster ride.
Alvin Michelson, do you think that this witness, obviously it's an important witness for the prosecution, took up all of the morning session on direct examination and looks to be taking up all of the afternoon session on cross-examination. Would you suspect that there will be some redirect here to try to rehabilitate, if you will, this witness?
Absolutely. I think the defense has done a very smart thing. What they've done is they've taken a witness who's really an unsophisticated police officer. He's just a patrol officer, and have used him to portray a scene that has been fooled with. He's not really ready to talk about this. He's not a detective. But you're going to hear this come up later on, that's for sure.
On producing.
Let's listen in as Judge Lancito addresses the court.
The one they intended to produce on the ground.
I thought we
There's apparently four. There's one other one with the glove has been moved. I'm just trying to find that. I think that one I have.
Johnny Cochran's still trying to locate the still frame that he's seeking to print out. Greta Van Susteren, this first witness for the prosecution in the form of a law enforcement officer, Officer Robert Risky, obviously very important because he was the first officer to respond to the scene. Has he been damaging, in your opinion, to the prosecution?
Part of his testimony is when he said that he arrived at 12:10 or thereabouts and there was ice cream that still hadn't melted. The defense would love to have the jury believe that this murder occurred after 11 o'clock. The prosecution would love to have the jury believe that it occurred before. So that melted ice cream may actually turn out to be a very key piece of evidence.
This is the same thing that Mr.
More
Cochran's been
scientific
doing
than a dog barking.
throughout this trial. This is another distortion. This is another deception. Because what he is trying to show this jury is that there was some nefarious, sinister agency at work here in moving the evidence. In fact, that is totally false. What you can tell if you look in the photographs where he claims evidence was moved is that there were photo number tags and the bodies had been removed. As Mr. Cochran has elicited in cross-examination himself, it is a very tight space. And when Mr. Goldman's body had to be moved, it is natural that some of the evidence around the body, which was closely located to the body, like the glove, which we can tell in the photographs where, matter of fact, can you pull that up, please? The photograph in which, before Mr. Goldman's body has been moved, you can see that the toe of his boot is right near the glove. As you can see in this photograph, Your Honor, where the numbered tag appears, the boot is no longer there, and that's because the bodies have been removed. In the movement of the bodies, obviously, some evidence was disturbed, and that's why they take the photographs before and after. And Mr. Cochran is deliberately trying to mislead and confuse this jury and cause prejudice in the minds of this jury by not letting them know that what has actually transpired here is that the bodies were removed in between the time the first and the second photographs were taken.
Yes. As usual, counsel has it all wrong. I asked this officer, her officer, whether or not you take pains not to have evidence moved. And that's the question that I asked him. Now, I asked him, and they can explain that all they want. The evidence, he told me no evidence was to be moved or ever moved. I'm not responsible for this crime scene. They are, Your Honor. If we have evidence in which, in one photograph, Your Honor, the glove is pointing with the V up against the walkway, and the other, it's been turned and moved. The cap has also been moved. They haven't seen anything yet. And she's going to try to explain. She thinks she can explain everything away. By the end of this case, she will have offered so many explanations, I think she'll finally even be tired. And so that this doesn't work, Your Honor. She cannot explain everything, and everything is a misrepresentation. All I've done is shown a picture, Your Honor, of their crime scene. And that's, if they can't, first of all, they break the state law and call in the coroner out 10 hours later.
Wait, Mr. Cochran, that kind of apples and oranges is kind of a waste of my time,
I don't waste your time.
especially this late in the day.
All right, let me just say this.
But let me ask you a question. This particular witness is a P2 patrol officer who gets called to the scene. He's not the detective who's in charge of the crime scene. All this guy does is take a look-see, decide he's in over his head, and calls his supervisor. Secures the crime scene. Here he is. This is not the guy to explain how the photographs were taken or what's where. And he has already testified with regards to the people's exhibits that it appears to him these two items have already been moved.
That's correct.
So why do we need to go into this with this officer?
Primarily.
You've established that fact.
I
but
did.
for a P2 to testify to all of this stuff.
First of all, Your Honor knows she's a P2. This lawyer over here tried to make him seem like he was the most careful officer in the history of the LAPD, how he tipped around this scene. She went through it 15 times. So,
No,
Your Honor,
only 10 times.
well, 10 times, Your Honor. That's, well, it seemed, well, I was off by 5. 10 times she went through it. Made him like the greatest P2 ever. This jury doesn't know the difference between a P2 and, or whatever, Your Honor. She created this aura, because she always tries to do that, and now I'm going to show that the evidence was moved.
Here's the problem. This guy had nothing to do with taking these photographs, nothing to do with collecting the evidence, and nothing to do with the calling the coroner, nothing to do with setting up the photographs. He had nothing to do with anything.
Well, he did see the one photograph taken where Furman is in there. He said he was present when that was
He's
taken.
present for that one.
Right. He was present for that, and he said that the other things have been moved. And that's the point we're trying to make. I didn't make this evidence. This evidence was moved. Now, she may try to justify it all weekend.
Well, Mr. Cochran, you've established that already with this witness using other exhibits. I think it's an undue use of the court's time with this witness.
All right, fine. I'll move on. Ask another thing, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Well, we've taken the entire balance of the court. It's amazing how these things sort of wrap up right about at 4:30. All right, I'm going to invite the jurors to rejoin us. I'm going to sustain a 352 objection to those 4 photographs as to this witness. All right, let's have the jurors. Yeah, let me see counsel without reporter, please.
While we're waiting for the jury to come in, the counsel are going once again to sidebar. We're going to take it short. Judge Lancito has recalled the jurors, but just as quickly, he told them that he's going to be in recess. However, he did ask the attorneys to remain so that they can put a few things on the record. The camera is still tilted up, and we're going to take this opportunity now to bring in our analyst, Greta Van Susteren in Washington. It appears that Johnny Cochran made the point using the prosecution's own photos that the envelope and the glove, at least in this officer's words, appear to have been moved. Isn't that good enough?
Jim, there's no smarter thing a lawyer can do than to use the other side's witness and make that witness your witness. And the defense theory has been contamination from the beginning. And now what Johnny Cochran has been able to do is to show that the evidence was moved using a prosecution's witness.
And how do you assess the possible damage to either side?
Well, you can never assess the possible damage. It sure isn't a good day for the prosecution when its witnesses look like it was contaminating the scene, and that's the thrust of the defense. So it's not a very good day for the prosecution. But there'll be a redirect examination, and perhaps Marcia Clark has a reasonable explanation for it. We have to wait till we hear all the evidence, and we'll know for sure. But right now, it doesn't look good with this witness for the prosecution.
Alvin Michelson here in Los Angeles. You've been talking all day about perception, not necessarily reality. The perception here is that certain evidence may have been moved. Now, just as Marcia Clark said on the record, that there may be a very good reason for that, that there were photos taken while the bodies were still there. Then when the bodies were removed, there were other photos taken. So it's perfectly justifiable from the prosecution standpoint. But what about the perception?
Well, it's very interesting. As Johnny Cochran pointed out, Marcia Clark tried to show that this just patrol officer really was wonderful. He took steps to make sure that the thing was not contaminated and so forth and so on, that the scene was not contaminated. Kind of opened up this whole area to allow Johnny Cochran to use this witness to show that, in fact, it was contaminated. Now, it may not have been contaminated, but certainly things were moved and so forth and so on, and this officer was permitted to be asked questions and answer questions far above his expertise. He probably didn't see half the things he says he saw. He couldn't have watched the scene all the time. He couldn't have made sure that all these things took place, but he said he saw it. And this is what happens when the prosecution or when one side tries to protect itself and kind of overdoes it. And Johnny Cochran, being the good lawyer that he is taking advantage of it.
We're still waiting for court to reconvene. We'll take a short break. We'll be back with more right after this. Stay with CNN. Court is once again in session. Christopher Darden is going to respond to some allegations that Johnny Cochran just made. First of all, he wants to have the court re-instruct all witnesses not to watch TV coverage, as this officer today testified he had done. Let's listen in.
Mr. Shapiro says it's not true. Let me referee this one for you, okay? We apologize, Bob. We appreciate that. Okay? We apologize. Okay. And as for Mr. Cochran, we don't need you to tell us how to do our job. We attach to every subpoena the court's directions, okay? So if it happened to fall off this officer somewhere along the way, we apologize to the court for that. But the court will recall that the officer said that he saw the preliminary hearing, and that was, what, 6 months ago? I don't think the order applied to or was in effect 6 months ago. So we will be careful to make sure that the witnesses are aware of the court's order.
All right.
All right. Thank you, counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you.
We'll stand in recess.
Your Honor, please put your answer on the question.
Sure.
Alvin Michelson, you hear this back and forth. It always seems to happen toward the end of the day that the tempers seem to be at their shortest. What do you make of this? As a trial attorney, is this normal?
Well, it concerns me, frankly, that the district attorney's office, in this particular case, as we've seen, always claims kind of nefarious motives on the part of the defense. I see the defense complaining about things, saying, you know, we didn't get this, or this is not appropriate, or whatever. But this, forgive me, it sounds like whining on the part of Ms. Clark whenever she says these things. And she does make rather serious allegations. No mistake, but Shapiro's a criminal. He's doing terrible things. Cochran's doing terrible things. That's not the way attorneys are supposed to act. If she's got a complaint, she should so state it. But the way she couches it, frankly, I think is inappropriate.
Greta Van Susteren, you said not 15 minutes ago that the parties at one point love each other and very shortly thereafter seem to hate each other. We're seeing this very same thing right now. What do you make of all this?
We sure are, Jim. There's that roller coaster ride I was telling you about. One minute they love each other, and the next minute they despise each other. But the one thing you have to remember, these lawyers are exhausted. They are very tired. They get under each other's skin very easily. And contrary to what Mr. Michelson says, I think that it goes both ways. I've seen arrows shot over both sides, and I think they're both exhausted, and they're going to even get meaner and nastier to each other. But there will be times when they can laugh. This is a long, hard trial, and they are absolutely exhausted, and it's not over.
Greta, it appeared that Johnny Cochran was trying to plant the seeds with respect to these allegations against Detective Mark Furman. On the stand, Officer Risky said that Mark Furman returned from Rockingham, that's O.J. Simpson's house, at approximately 6:30 in the morning, and shortly thereafter, that's when Officer Risky saw Detective Furman standing near the area of Ron Goldwyn's body, pointing toward the glove that was found at the crime scene, and that's when the photo was taken. Do you think that there will be a call back to that sometime later to suggest that Mark Furman may have planted this glove?
But what a defense lawyer does is sow seeds of suspicion, and then you hear it all tied up in closing argument. You'll hear the lawyer standing up before the jury at the end of the trial and say, this is why you should rule in a particular way. And what will happen is Mr. Cochran will remind the jurors of this sort of suspicious activity. And that's the way the lawyers do it. So they sow suspicion, and then they tie it all up in closing arguments.
Alvin Michelson, another question arose with regard to the fingerprints. We heard testimony from Officer Risky that he observed what he believed to be blood on the rear gate of Nicole Brown Simpson's condominium, and yet he stated that at no time while he was on the premises, and he left at approximately 7:15 on the morning of June 13th, he said no fingerprint person had arrived at the scene. Is that misconduct in your opinion, or is the defense trying to suggest that?
Well, I think what's occurred here is it's obvious the police work has been ineffectual. Has it been venal? Has it been evil? Well, that's what the defense says. But it's clear it's been ineffectual. What they've done here with the fingerprint people coming late and the photograph situation really is kind of sad in a case of such importance. And it does open up holes of necessity in the prosecution's case, which the prosecution has to deal with.
Greta, what do you make of the fingerprints?
Well, I think the fingerprints is an issue, and I think what the defense is doing is they're honing in on that particular issue. What the defense is constantly trying to do is sow into this case reasonable doubt. Any reason why the jury should be suspicious of something, or any way that they can show the prosecution can't meet its burden of proof. All the defense needs is one reasonable doubt, and there'll be a verdict of not guilty.
You can see that court is still in session. The attorneys are still at sidebar. O.J. Simpson's attorneys maintain their client is being framed. They say elements within the LAPD are racist and inept. And right off the bat today, the officer in the witness stand made a brief assertion that could serve to support at least part of that claim. Robert Risky was the first officer to arrive at the scene of the Simpson-Goldman murders. It was part of his job to ensure the integrity of the crime scene evidence. But in running down his resume, Risky said his police training gave short shrift to crime scene preservation.
I did 6 months in Los Angeles Police Academy, did a year of probation.
In the course of your training, sir, at the academy, were you trained in crime scene preservation?
They kind of gloss over it. They don't really train you in it.
Did you learn it at some point in your duties, in your functioning?
Just on-the-job training.
Greta, that was one of the first things that came out of this witness's mouth, and I'm sure that it shocked this prosecutor. What do you think?
Oh, I'm sure. Jim, you know, the worst thing you can do is ask a question you don't know the answer to, but it happens to all lawyers. I know that probably Alvin's done it. I must confess I've done it, and when it happens, you just want to slide under the table and pretend you don't exist. But Marcia Clark is a smart lawyer. She quickly recovered and proved that although this witness didn't get a lot of training in the police academy, he had on-the-job training, and on-the-job training sometimes is more valuable than in the courtroom.
Indeed, during direct examination, prosecutor Marcia Clark tried to repair any damage that might have resulted from that comment that you just heard. Again and again, she had Risky retraced his steps through the crime scene at 875 South Bundy, where the Simpson and Goldman bodies were discovered. Repeatedly, Risky maintained he did not disturb any evidence, including the crucial blood.
Now, that walkway that you see in both 42 on the screen, was that 38? Excuse me, 38 on the screen, and the photographs in People's 43. Did you illuminate that with your flashlight?
Yes.
What did you see in that walkway?
There's a pool of blood under the victim, the female white, and it flows down towards the sidewalk.
And in the blood, did you see any kind of patterns?
There was paw prints towards the sidewalk, and there was a heel mark by the fence where close to where the envelope is.
Risky testified he saw a pattern of bloody shoe prints that led from the bodies in the direction of the alley behind the condominium. He said the prints faded out about halfway to the rear gate. He also said he saw one black glove, the one that matches the bloody glove allegedly found later by Detective Mark Furman on the grounds of O.J. Simpson's home. Under cross-examination, Risky testified about precautions that were taken or not taken at the crime scene to preserve the identity, or rather the integrity, of the evidence. His testimony revealed that some of the evidence, including that glove, was handled by officials at the scene.
The detectives were dressed in plainclothes, were they?
Yes.
In fact, on one of the photographs that you were asked to look at this morning, we have a photograph of Detective Furman. And did you see him and how he was able to access the area where he was looking for the mid-cap, where he was pointing down towards it? Did you see him access that area?
Yes, I did.
Did he have any booties or anything on his shoes at the time he was walking in that area?
No, he didn't.
Were any of the officers wearing any booties on their shoes at all that morning?
No.
Were any of the officers at all using gloves that morning when they were out there?
Not that I recall, no.
O.J. Simpson often appeared uneasy as graphic photographs were shown in court. Judge Lance Ito prevented many of the photos from being seen outside the courtroom. There were two significant developments out of court today. One of the main prosecution figures announced he will not return to the Simpson courtroom. William Hodgman said he has recovered from the chest pains that caused him to be rushed to a hospital 2 weeks ago, but he said he has a health concern he did not disclose and will now play a role behind the scenes.
Bill Hodgman's back. I'm basically doing fine. I'm going to have a new role, which I'm looking forward to doing. And for all of you who have expressed concern, all of you who've sent well wishes over the past several weeks, I very much appreciate them.
Also today, a potentially important defense witness pleaded not guilty to felony fraud charges. O.J. Simpson's attorneys say Marianne Gerchis can help clear Simpson of the murder charges. Yesterday, Gerchis was arrested for suspicion of fraud for allegedly failing to pay a $23,000 hotel bill. She's been in trouble before for alleged fraud and passing bad checks. Prosecutors had labeled her a, quote, known liar and a Simpson case groupie. Greta Van Susteren, what's your assessment of the impact of Bill Hodgman not being back in the courtroom? How will it affect the prosecution in your opinion?
Jim, it's a terrible blow to the prosecution. Bill Hodgman is a very experienced prosecutor, and we've had a glimpse of his work so far, and he does have a wonderful performance in the courtroom. He seems to have sort of a reassuring sense. He's not a hothead, and both sides need someone who's not a hothead, and I think Bill Hodgman performed that function for the prosecution. You need a few hotheads on your team, but you also need someone who is a little bit more relaxed and commanding of the courtroom, and so it's a blow to the prosecution.
Alvin Michelson, is this really a bitter pill for the prosecution, in your opinion?
Well, I think it is harmful, but I don't think it's an overwhelming blow. You have two lawyers in that courtroom who, frankly, I think are doing a pretty good job, and they've certainly been around for a long time. Mr. Hodgman is considered one of the best lawyers in that office, and in that sense, certainly his judgment and the loss of his judgment and his ability to participate will be harmful.
What about Marianne Gerchis? You heard the defense attorney, Johnny Cochran, imply at least that this was not a coincidence that these charges were brought against the defense witness at this time. How do you feel about that?
Well, first of all, it's very interesting. You know, actually, her case could be over, and she could literally be in prison at the time of her testimony. That would certainly be an interesting kind of twist to this case. So that's one thing. I'm sure that the district attorney's office would like to see her in prison when she testifies.
Well, let's make one point very clear. It's my understanding under California law that with regard to impeachment, the prosecutor could not bring up the fact that charges have been filed. They must wait until and unless there is a conviction, because a felony conviction can be used to impeach. Is that correct?
Well, that's true, but there's a bunch of other stuff, as we know, that would be able to be used to impeach her. Certainly the statement she made before to other people certainly put a doubt on her testimony. But the idea of her coming into court in prison uniform would certainly be harmful to the defense case.
Greta, how do you think that this impacts the defense, if at all, that these charges were filed?
I think it has a chilling impact on this witness. This witness may not have such a willingness to come forward and give testimony now that she's facing criminal charges. Frankly, I don't know how you find a hotel that'll give you $23,000 worth of credit, and I'm a bit curious how she managed to do that, if she did it. She hasn't been convicted of anything, but I'm sure that that'll be an interesting aspect to this case as well.
We keep talking about the cumulative effect, and it's very difficult to look at each day and have a scorecard. But look back at this day, and Greta, tell me what you think happened today, and who do you think really came out on top?
I think the most powerful thing that happened today is the ice cream. You know, in terms of trying to determine when this death occurred, if it occurred after 11 o'clock, then O.J. Simpson has the perfect alibi, the limousine driver. The police officer testified that he arrived about 12:10 or 12:13 a.m., and there was ice cream there that was not completely melted. Now, I'm certainly not an expert in ice cream and how fast it takes to melt, but I suspect that most jurors would believe that's a lot more scientific than a dog barking. And remember, the dog was discovered, according to Mr. Schwab, he says, at 10:55. That's what he testified in court. But he made a statement to the police last June that it could have been 11 o'clock or 11:30. So there's still a lot of twists in this case, but I think the ice cream may be the key tonight.
Alvin Michelson, the ice cream, is it the key in your opinion?
Well, it could be, especially since Mr. Furman apparently was in shirt sleeves and it was probably a warm evening in June. If, in fact, the ice cream hasn't melted, that could be a good, very, very strong point for the defense.
You sound like an attorney for the defense to me.
Well, in this particular case, I'm analyzing what the defense did today, and I've been asked to do that, and it's a good thing for the defense.
Looking back at the day's total events, what do you see as the most significant development, if any?
Well, I think the ice cream is certainly important, as Greta says, and I think she honed in on that quite properly. But I think also the fact that they used this patrol officer, who really is not an expert in crime scenes and so forth, used him to demonstrate that bad things had happened at this particular scene. And it supports the defense case that bad things happened and maybe they were evil things that happened at this particular scene. They used this poor patrol officer who, frankly, Marcia Clark should not have, seems to me, used so extensively to demonstrate regarding the scene. They used him to their purposes, and I think they gained a lot of points today.
Again, the headlines from the O.J. Simpson trial. Police officer Robert Risky testified his police training, quote, glossed over crime scene preservation. But Risky, the first officer to arrive at the scene of the Simpson-Goldman murders, repeatedly stated he'd avoided contact with crucial blood evidence. Defense attorney Johnny Cochran drew out Risky on several points, including the way other officers handled some of the crime scene evidence. The district attorney announced key prosecutor William Hodgman will not return to the courtroom after being hospitalized 2 weeks ago with chest pains, and a potential defense witness pleaded not guilty to felony fraud charges. For a complete wrap-up of today's events in the trial of O.J. Simpson, you can tune in to CNN tonight at 11:30 p.m. Eastern, 8:30 Pacific. And this reminder, court will not be in session in the O.J. Simpson trial again until next Tuesday. And that's when we will, of course, resume our live coverage beginning at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern. I'm Jim Moray in Los Angeles. Let's go now to Lyndon Souls for a preview on what's coming up on Prime News.
Thank you, Jim. Just ahead, among the stories we'll be bringing you, the World Trade Center bombing could have had a